You gotta love
When
that.
will this be on Facebook?
Huh?
When will this be?
It should be on now. We just went live. Welcome back, everyone. Another hour of the SuperMex show, to the point. And we are about to wrap up our fourth installment in a series of what I called fact-finding information gathering on the west side of Fresno, Central Unified School District in particular, and putting together a body of information and analysis on things that our kids are dealing with and our community has to go forward with in terms of the school system and how we can best go about altering or moving forward, changing, and bettering what we've got. So I'm going to do that again because we have to. But for the record, I'll say it a bunch of times because I've had people try to take issue with it. Good luck with that. Bottom line is our system is good. It is a good school district. Quote, it is a good school district, but it's not the best school district. And I want to be perfectly clear about that. And I've said this more than a few times. For those that are listening, if you don't want to hear that, then you have the freedom that I fought for in this country, to not listen. Gotta love America, baby. You just don't have to listen if you don't want to. So you don't have to listen, but we are dissecting and analyzing the things that our kids are dealing with and that our school system deals with to best find a way to get the solution and solving problems so that we get better. I want to be the best district. It's plain and simple, that clear. I don't want to tinker with all the great things that we do. Incidentally, by the way, I mean, so we do this all the time because I played football for Central. Love the football team. They're #1 in the Valley right now and absolutely destroying people. I mean, I think last night, I don't want to be too mean, but they took apart Clovis West. I didn't go to the game, but I do know it was like 40-something, and then they scored a couple touchdowns at the end. And then we got one more. We're tied for first place in track no matter what happens next week, so we're going to win league. And probably the toughest league in the Valley, at least for football. And if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong for my Facebook listener or my Facebook Live persons, I think we're also first in, and we may have locked up, first place in league in volleyball as well. So things are going good on that end. And notice how, and I'll just say it, let's put it out there. So athletically, we're good. We're doing some good things. And I'll say this too, because we've done this before, to reiterate the point. There are some sports that aren't as good, and I want them to be just as good. And I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody in particular other than systematically, we need to make it possible for every sport to be as good as football and volleyball. They're like, man, that's crazy. No, I just want to be #1. Sorry if you don't want to hear that. But that's on the athletic end, and we do need to address and get to the academic end because more important than anything else, ladies and gentlemen, kids walk through doors every day, and it's not so they can just play a sport. They're actually supposed to be getting an education, and the reason we get ADA, your daily allowance that you get from the state to educate a child, is for education and the academic point. So this week we are meeting or interviewing and talking to our panelist, who is a teacher and administrator and a whole bunch of other things in our system. So we're wrapping up the series with what we started with was the students the first week, and then we did successive weeks of parents in the community that represent a wide body of information and diversity. So students, parents, and today it's a teacher and administrator in our system going back many years, so he has a wide scope to draw on in terms of experiences. And then I will wrap up next week before the SuperMex show goes to a live daily, format during the weekday. This show airs Saturdays 3 to 4, other than what I'm doing right now on Facebook Live. But the show will eventually go to a weekday format, and I'll be on the air. Don't quote me yet, but it's going to be sometime around the noon hour during the weekday. And that's to get to a larger body of listeners. And of course, at that point, it's not just going to be Central Unified that we discuss. We'll talk about everything from, the Catalan crisis to flag issues, for that matter. I'm a vet, for those of you who don't know, so I've got some interesting perspective on how we view what has been said and what has been talked about. So without any further ado and any further gilding of the lily, let me introduce our panelist today. His name is Tim Swain. He's a friend and somebody I've known quite a while, at least from the professional perspective. My son and daughter have gone through Rio Vista, and Tim at one point or another was at Rio Vista during that time. And so he's been, again, a principal and a teacher. And so I won't go too far into his background because I want the listener to get it from the horse's mouth directly. So without any further ado and further gilding the lily, Tim Swain.
Okay, thanks, Richard.
Give me your background, babe.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Pretty.
Try to get the mic as close to you. Yeah, there you go.
All right, sorry about that. There you go. All right. Been in education for approximately 24, going on 25 years.
That's a quarter century.
Yeah. So for mine, I got 11 more years and I'm retiring, so that's pretty scary. Went to Fresno State, got my degree in mathematics, and started out a year at Washington Union, and then ever since then jumped over to Central.
Oh, I didn't know you did Union.
Yeah, it was over
okay.
with Bill Griffith and Johnny Pestridge, and it just was an amazing experience.
Oh, I know those names.
Yeah.
Those guys are,
big time wrestling. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And then after that, after my first year, went over to Central and started at West Campus as math teacher. Went through the ranks, was department chair, and then just very blessed to have the opportunity to become a GIA counselor myself.
Give the GIA thing, because a lot of people don't know what that is.
It's just basically it's a counselor, but with an administrative credential.
What's the acronym? It's
Guidance Instructional Advisor.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so GIAs, I think not so much unique to our district, but maybe the title is, because I don't know if my listeners all, that's GIA is at every other school system.
I think at like Clovis Unified or other places they call them GL something.
Okay.
There's another.
So is it kind of like a GIA could be for the audience, maybe like a VP, vice principal?
Yeah, it's basically a counselor, does all the counseling duties, but is able to do all the administrative duties.
That's where I get tripped up, and this is me being honest. There's so much gray area into the responsibilities of what administrators do, good and bad. Good and bad. Sometimes I feel sorry for them because they get the white umbrella where they have to do whatever the hell comes up, right?
Other duties as assigned. That's the famous clause.
Exactly.
For me, when I started, I basically was, for lack of a better term, like a vice principal in training. Mm-hmm. And I did all the academic counseling stuff. I met with students, did all their, all the requirements for graduation, all the requirements to go to Fresno State or UCs or community college. Did the social and emotional counseling as well. Students, came on in and, we talked about, different things that was going on. And then on the flip side, when it came to discipline, was doing the discipline and stuff, and suspensions and Saturday schools and different things like that. So that's kind of where I started, and I was very blessed to have that opportunity because I really got to learn the workings, the ins and outs of how a high school ran. How being an administrator, what's the expectation. And
so what was the first thing? It's going to be like a long, drawn-out interview of your background, because and I'm learning too. And just like the one guy, I got a call from this past week from a listener that said she liked the fact that I break down the things that are said for people that do not understand the mechanics or terms that are used in education, because edubabble can be a Byzantine process of understanding.
There's acronyms for everything.
Exactly. And if you don't know what they are, then you're kind of without. So what I wanted to get was, so when you first started, you say you came out of the classroom, you're department chair, and you went, GIA was the first thing you did? Okay, so where were you when you started the administrative process?
I was at Central East.
Okay, so you were East, not West.
No, East. I started as a math teacher at West Campus.
Okay, so let me run you back, because that I do know.
Yeah.
I do know you were with my crime partner, Mr. Fitzpatrick, back at West.
Fitzpatrick,
shout out to the big man upstairs, Dennis Fitzpatrick.
Yes, sir.
I most hard-headed old teacher I ever knew, but he changed my life, and I'll leave it at that. So
I live by a lot of the things that he's taught me.
He was he probably couldn't get away with half the murder he did back then. It would be hard to do today. But I mean, I will say this about him is that he didn't lie.
No.
He told you what he thought.
No,
You
exactly.
knew where he was.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just say, like, without digressing too much, we are losing a little bit of that in education, where it's about everything else other than just give it to me straight, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you were at West.
We're at West.
For how long?
We were there for 2 years, and then East Campus opened up.
Okay,
And,
you
so,
went to
and
East.
then we all went over to East Campus.
So that's 96. 96. That's when they opened. Believe me, I know that date implicitly. So 96.
I don't know the dates. I forget the dates.
It was a blur.
It's a blur. Yeah. So then, you know, taught math over there, and kind of went through the whole ins and outs of opening up a brand new high school.
Right.
And which was a great opportunity, and I really learned what to do and what not to do when doing stuff like that. And then, you know, I kind of got to the aspect of why am I here?
Yeah.
Why am I teaching? And I really kind of got dialed into the whole fact of, you know, when I was a teacher and still now I'm back teaching, you know, I could affect, you know, 40 kids, 35 kids.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And I don't know, just something in my heart was itching about, you know what?
I'd like to get to a larger audience.
You can do bigger, better. And so, you know, I kind of decided that, you know, hey, I want to become, you know, administrator. And so, you know, I was afforded the opportunity with Jim Dice, that was principal at the time, and Chris Williams was there. And I don't know what they saw in me, but they gave me a shot. And you know, myself and you know, Tammy Herrera, and you know, rest in peace, my sister. You know, I love her to death. We were kind of partners in crime, and we were kind of, you know, doing our thing and learning the ropes. And then, you know, I just it worked out really well, and I just wanted to keep going. And so then
so East, and then to
and then I became a vice principal at East.
Okay.
And just really learned, you know, just the whole ins and outs of everything. But I was really focused on being an administrator, and I kind of forgot the whole teaching aspect. And, you know, there were people in my life, you know, kind of said, hey, you know what, you're doing great as an administrator, but, you know, hey, don't forget that teaching aspect. And, you know, Dennis Fitzpatrick, you know, told me many times that when I went into administration, you know, he said, hey, don't you know, don't forget who you are. Don't forget where you came from.
Don't forget the purpose of education.
Yeah, and there was a little bit of time I kind of did, you know, because I was rocking and rolling. And
give me a window of, like, when do you think? I mean, because it's different for everybody, obviously. You know, this window that arbitrarily that I'm talking about, where you want to, because I in a way I kind of, you know, to this point, I taught for, you know, a few years, and I ran for state assembly because I had 120, 130, 140 kids that I saw every day, and I saw all the inequities and the things that we could change that would make it easier for a teacher to teach. So I'm going to guess that's kind of where you were. You said, well, I can do this, and I can make it better for a teacher in the classroom to do their job. When does that administrative window begin to close, where you're in and the world's your oyster, and you're just like, I can do this, 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 and this, and then you begin to see that it morphs away because you're not in the classroom daily, and I think maybe that's it, right?
Well, you know, I don't think it ever closes. I think that people do close it, and I learned
some do, some don't.
So you know, people, you know,
that's
some
obvious.
Do, some don't. That's very obvious, you know, and you know, I learned to open that door and open it pretty wide. And so, you know, I had the opportunity that, you know, when Larry Powell was superintendent, you know, him and I chatted, and, you know, I was like, hey, you know, I want to run my own school. And so, you know, he put me over at El Cap as a VP so I could get more experience. I was just a high school guy. And I remember walking on El Cap's campus for the first time, and I went, oh my gosh, I made the biggest mistake in the world.
Hey, what is up, boy?
But what I mean by middle school, I mean middle school kids.
I'm messing with you.
These kids are running around, and they're, you know,
I've said, I don't know about you, but I really do believe, you know, and I've done a lot of different things in education, but I think middle school's, oh man, middle school's rough.
No, it's actually, it's where I love the middle school.
You like middle school?
Yeah.
I'm talking about puberty and challenges of emotions and all those other things. That's when I saw that kids begin to, and I mean rough in the sense that they're solidifying who they are coming out of middle school into high school.
Well, they're little kids in big kids' bodies, you know? And so you really have to learn how to, you know, how to kind of tap into that and to get them to are. So, you know, I was there for a few years, and I really kind of turned the corner as to, instead of just a disciplinarian, you know, to basically a teacher of teachers. Yeah. And in my opinion, as an administrator, that's what you are. You are a leader, and you're leading a school, and you're doing all this other stuff, but you are a teacher. You are a teacher of teachers. You know, you are a teacher of all of your students, you know? And so, you know, I did that for a few years, and I really worked on a lot of things. Yeah. And then, you know, I was just very blessed to go to Rio Vista as principal. And I tell you, man, that was the best ride in the world. I love that. I to this day, you know, people ask me that, hey, you know what, do you want to come back? Do you you know, do you miss it? And I said, you know, I really do. I miss the kids. I miss the community. I miss my staff. My staff were amazing, you know, but, you know, doing that for a while, you kind of like, okay, you know what, we're building this amazing climate there, you know. I mean, I was in classrooms, I was, you know, teaching lessons, you know, with my teachers. I mean, you can ask your wife. Your wife was there. I mean, we were always in the classroom, and it just wasn't me, it was all my administration. I mean, we had like little things where,
your leadership team.
Yeah, my leadership team, you know, it's like, you're not going to sit up in your office, you're going to be out in the classroom and stuff. And yeah, you know, when time dictates and we've got to deal with something, okay, great. But, you know, you're in the classroom, end of story, you know, and you know, it was a great time. It was a really great time. And I really saw the big picture as to what my purpose is and what my purpose was, as to where, you know, I was a teacher of teachers. I was, you know, I wanted my teachers, I empowered my teachers. You know, I said, here you go. Here's some methodologies. You know what? Go for it. Spread your wings, fly, you know, and my teachers did that. Right. You know, I empowered the heck out of them. And you know, to this day, you know, I see them and stuff like that, and just, you know, the warm comments and everything, you know, back and forth is, you know, yeah, you know, we and at that time, you know, I think now Rio Vista's like 800 kids or something like that, you know, when they're growing. And yeah, but you know what, though, bigger than when I was in high school. But back in the day, we were the 1,300. You know, we were rocking. We were like a mini little high school. And, you know, and we had all the demographics there, you know, and all the subgroups, and, you know, our kids were learning, and they were growing, and we were making gains. And you know what, it just was it was a great time, you know. And so I was blessed to be there. And that's when I really realized that as an administrator, you are not just, hey, I'm focused on the paperwork, or I'm focused on this discipline. You have to be focused on the whole culture and climate of your school, you know. And then, you know, I kind of got to a point where I was like, you know what, I want to grow educationally, you know. And I went back and I got my master's in mathematics right before I resigned at Rio. And you know, I'm teaching at Central Alternative. Brand new challenge. You know, I remember when I resigned, you know, I was talking with some folks, and they said, hey, you know, where do you want to be? Where do you want to go? And I was going to go back to West Campus and teach out there, you know. And this opportunity came open at Central Alternative, and, you know, Pat Flatley, the principal at the time, man, he just, you know, he gave me the opportunity, and they did not have a full-time math teacher there. You know, all the teachers taught all the subjects, and I said, well, you know, what do you need from me? He goes, just, you know what to do, make it happen.
So back in the class, back in the classroom after administration, and what's the grade level that you're doing?
I'm 7th through 12. Primarily, I have a few 8th graders, a few 7th graders, but primarily 9 through 12.
And all math?
All math, all levels. I have anywhere from general math to our Common Core, math 1, math 2, math 3.
That's got to be good mental exercise.
I've got some trigonometry kids, you know, I've got it all. And then, you know, at night, I teach at Fresno City.
That's what I was going to ask. Okay, so you're still teaching, you teach outside, you teach after hours with adults?
Adults, I teach at Fresno City, and I teach at, Willow, they call it Clovis Community College. So Clovis Community, I've been doing that as well for, you know, 3-4 years.
You're like 90 jobs, man.
Yeah, but you know what, though, it's good. It's you know, I'm so used to going as an administrator. You know, I want to just keep going. That's just, you know, and I like it. I really like it.
So in terms of scope, I mean, you've got plenty of background, obviously. So specifically,
Gee, I hope.
Yeah. So specifically for what we're doing,
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, I mean, so I'll just go to it. And what was the first year officially you were in Central?
1994.
1994. So you were here when we had the split.
Yes.
And we're gonna get
Yes.
slowly into the meat and potatoes.
I was here for when we went from regular schedule to block schedule.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was, and it was compressed block.
Yeah.
I remember that. I was just actually talking to one of my colleagues the other day, and we were talking about.
We may get to that,
Okay.
and for my listener and audience, because I've had some questions, specifically about some of the things that we do differently than some others. Whether what are the pros and cons?
Sure.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to say you were here '94.
Yeah.
You were here for the split. You were here for the beginning of the block transition over. And size-wise, what was West Campus back then when you were there?
It was, that's a great question.
Was it over 1,000 yet?
I think
roughly?
It was probably pretty close.
We
were my first 2 years at West Campus. My first year I was a roaming teacher. So on teachers' prep periods, I roamed. Oh yeah, I roamed. And then you'll love this. Did
you roam or did you rove?
No, whatever.
A little bit of
Roam, a little bit of both.
All the above.
Oh yeah. And then my second year, my classroom was the gym foyer. So the little entrance that when you go into the gym.
I know what that is.
Yeah. And
that was your class?
That was my classroom.
What the hell?
Yeah. Well, we had others that were in the auto body shop and different things because we were very impacted.
That deserves a wow.
But you make do, and
you make do, but that's kind of.
And then I got a brand new portable, and that's when we had all kinds of portables out there.
So that was it at West.
That was at West Campus.
That was at West.
Yeah.
Okay, so that I'm trying to get a handle on the number. Right? Okay, so I was late '80s.
Yeah.
88 with Fitz.
Yes.
Dog. And we were not more than 1,000. I want to say 700 or 800.
Yeah, we
at most.
We were at least pushing 1,000.
You had to have because I've kind of had this discussion with some people recently. Now that the show has gone full blown, and I've got loads of people asking questions, and I'm happy for that. For those of you our listener that have made the attempt to ask more questions, and then I think I've given that caveat up front, and I tell people openly, if you don't believe me or you don't want to hear what I have to say, go ask the question. I'm good with that. I'm entirely good. Just go ask the question and find out for yourself. And if you don't want to take my word for it, then I'm entirely comfortable finding out on your own.
Sure.
So I want to say 800, give or take. I know our senior class wasn't more. It might have been less actually. So I know our senior class wasn't more than maybe 100, roughly in that range. And then so a little bit of scope and background for the listener. And in our central community, we really started to balloon and grow in the late 80s and early 90s. They built the Trend homes on this side of 99, Ashland, close to where the East Campus is now. And then boom, just like all over the place, development started popping up.
I think the best way to describe the transition when I was at West to East was West we're still kind of a country school, country-ish. We're out there on Dickinson, and that's what I mean by country. And then all of a sudden we come over to the current site and we're with all the new houses and stuff.
Like,
it
was the beginnings of
full blown in the city.
It was the beginning of what I saw as the urban perspective and approach to how we grew as a district, because there was no question. I mean, here's what we knew as city back then. Highway City. Yeah. That's where I grew up. It was Highway City. But when you had that mammoth amount of just drop down subdivision where you have loads of homes going in and large amounts of families moving in to the community and becoming a part of what we were, it morphed. It changed who we were as a community.
Yes.
And then so one thing that you and I definitely need to talk about. There are two things that I definitely want to get out before 25 minutes. Look at that, it's quick. Yeah. So definitely we need to go over to so that I'm using your experience and your expertise as best as possible for my listener viewer. Is the culture and atmosphere, the atmospheric change that took place from that time, my time, into the early 90s and mid 90s. And then when we split, it became a different culture, different environment, different atmosphere, all the above. Socioculturally, it was different. and so that we're clear, I do have a few hard-headed naysayers that are just averse to anything that I say. That's on them. That's up to you. I feel for you. None but love for you. But it doesn't mean that it was negative. It just means that it was different. It was a different approach, like I said. So we began to take in and become more of an urban look to who we were, because we were kind of a hybrid. I mean, we had all these little sub-communities within the larger body that was Central Unified. I mean, we used to, I'm going to do this on air. We used to throw chingazos with the Viola, the Herndon guys, the Madison. We'd go play football with Houghton Kearney, and it was like, mixing it up, because those my farming homies out there, and some of my best friends that I never knew until high school. Israel Molina, if you're out there, Izzy Molina, he was a Houghton Kearney guy, HK, and he ended up being one of my best friends before I graduated high school, and we became part of a larger. My best friend to this day, Joey Rosales, he was Roosevelt, he was a Roadrunner, and we just became this hodgepodge group that eventually became one before we graduated. And one of my biggest pet peeves today, in a large way, is that my daughter talks about it. She's a junior at the high school, and there are people she will never meet and never know as she goes through 4 years at the high school in her own class. And so that let's get to that a little bit so we can draw on your perspectives. I know where I'm at and what I saw, and I'm kind of like spilling that out for you. But I did see that change. I mean, I saw it change, and
I saw the change as well.
And so I mean, you were right at the spear tip of that change.
Right in the middle.
You were right there as it happened, and you saw the growth, and then you were right at the spear tip and right on the wave as you went from to LCAP. So basically, you were west and east and LCAP, then Rio Vista. So you've seen it all in all forms and shapes, old schools and new schools. You saw both high schools, and you saw both back then what the middle schools were. Now we have Glacier Point. But separate from that, up into that point, you were at LCAP and you were at Rio. So without too much, I mean, give me a few minutes on what you've seen in terms of, and again, good or bad, because this is for our audience, and this is unfiltered, and this is like, I didn't meet with Tim or the kids before or the parents before and give them talking points or things to say. I'm so confident that people want to know about these things that I'm okay with putting anybody on the air, and then you just spill your guts and tell us what it's about. So what you tell me about what you think you saw over that time.
First of all, that people know me. I say what I need to say. And I want to first kind of preface this that I want to be part of the solution,
right?
Not the problem. And, when I first started at West Campus, in my opinion, it was a small school. It's a small school compared to now. And it was a very family atmosphere.
Yes, it was.
It was.
We all knew each other.
We were all brothers and sisters, and we fought like brothers and sisters. But at the end of the day,
at the end of 4 years,
and even with administration and teaching and stuff, there's that just typical stuff. But you know what, really, with our administrators and with our teachers, we knew, why are you in the classroom? Why are you at the position that you're, basically for your love for kids, and I'm not saying that's not the point, of today with people, I'm just saying that I think those as we've grown and we've gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, in my opinion, it's like we've kind of forgotten, what our roots are, and really why.
I've used the term disconnect.
Okay.
Historically, meaning in scope and time, going back to that time, and current. I mean, because like I just said with my daughter, she doesn't know, and probably never will know, every student in her class. And most of, and this is for my new Central Community person that's your hand over fist, black and orange, and I got nothing but love for you. But there are things that you don't know. Going back that, and here's the thing, and this I will blame on system, meaning administration, and not any one in particular administration, but over time, over say 20 years, I don't think any one administration went overboard in trying to reconnect our history with each other and to show the scope of where we've come from and where we are now and how we keep our roots. I mean, I'm a history guy. I'm a history guy, and you know the rule. If you don't you know, you're going to repeat the mistakes of the past because you forget your history. So that's kind of, you know, for me, it's like I see disconnect in that we don't know a lot of things that have gone on in the past. You know what I mean?
No, I agree, and I think that, you know, that there's a lot of truth to that. You know, there is a disconnect, and it's not a negative thing. I think that it's more of, you know, as the job as an administrator, and not just at a school but a district office, as more and more and more gets lumped on these people, more and more responsibilities, more and more pressure. You know, that line gets muddy as to, hey, am I just here to survive and just, you know, to do the job, or am I here to, you know, get my people, my people that work for me, my students to grow, you know, and when we have such massive growth and volume, it's
and it's not even just students, because I mean, think about like staff, because you brought up a good point earlier. The staff probably back then when you first started was 30, 40, 50, roughly in that range, maybe. And now I know it's 100 something, maybe 200. I don't know. Between the two campuses. So what I said about students is applicable to you know, teaching staff, and this is something that I want parents, especially parents out there, to understand. There's such a thing as teaching culture and teaching environment, teaching atmosphere, where you feel like part of a homogenous body that is all moving in one direction. And you know the rule, because I'm a military guy. You know, you don't accomplish, you know, really incredible missions unless everybody's on board and moving in the same direction. And so my thing is that I don't fault teacher, I don't fault student, because they're just a product of the volume that we've become. And so obviously you can tell, you know, and I know you are too, I'm an advocate for one of the things I talked about openly at the door, walking precincts, was not just smaller class size, but invariably what ends up happening is if you don't also have smaller school size, you end up with larger class size. So I'm looking at both.
You know, and I get the financial implications of that. You know, okay, smaller class sizes and smaller schools cost money, but you know, I think, you know, for a lack of a better way of putting it, you know, we need to, as a community, and when I say community, you know, as our teachers, as our parents, as our administrators, everybody, we need to do what's best for kids.
All moving parts.
You know, and when I was, and again, you know, I mean, I don't want to keep referring back to, you know, what we did at Rio, but when we were at Rio,
back to Rio,
go Titans, baby, go Titans, right, Dom? But you know, the thing was, you know, you really had to take a step back and say, you know what? Every decision needs to be what's best for kids. And there's going to be people that aren't going to like that decision. There's going to be people that really like that decision. And as long as your heart, you know, as an administrator and as a teacher, you're doing everything focused on what's best for that child and what's best for kids, you know what? The naysayers, they don't have anything to say. They don't, you know, and when
you can, but then it rings hollow, because it's not believable or true.
They can, but it doesn't hold water.
Exactly.
You know, because it's like, okay, you know, I'm suspending your child because of blah, 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 but you got to throw in, hey, this is, you know, why I'm doing it. And you know what, this is what, you know, I need to get this child some help. And, you know, we need to get them reconnected back in, you know, get them refocused. It's all about what's best for kids. And, you know, you got to live by that. You got to live by that. And I think those waters are muddy. You know, and it's of no one.
So if I asked you, I made it like real simple when we dropped the dime on it, just put it to the point. I really believe, you know, and I haven't been in education as long as you. I've been in and around education in a variety of capacities, including private sector and other stuff. I really do believe it's volume, and so I tell my when I sit with my conservative homies and we talk about education, they're like, you know far more about education than us. And there's you're pretty conservative on education. I was like, actually, yeah, I am, you know, because conservative can mean a variety of different things, but I am very conservative on education. And I do believe that it is about, you know, the majority, the mass of our populace in this country getting what they need at the base, core courses, obviously, core courses, you know, language arts, mathematics, social sciences, and science. So if you're not getting those core, then we're not doing the job. But also size. I mean, we are literally building small cities now. So if, you know, I'll refresh if you don't know, because I don't know if you've seen all. I know you've seen some of the shows from here, But we've talked about the fact that we're so big. We're literally a small city.
Yes.
We're around roughly 4,300, probably more now. That that fluctuates. That depending on the school year. Some kids move, some kids stay, some don't. But the number's only rising, and we are not getting a hard handle on, in my opinion, what I think we should be doing, which is dropping school size significantly from 4,300. I don't think we should be half. You should be about half of that adequately, because what it does, and so let's put this to the listener, what it does is it's better at core for students and teachers and the ability to teach in the classroom, because with volume, you get the volume problems, like a disconnect. And it's almost like lost, but when teachers don't know each other and teachers don't work together, there's a disconnect. And then the student, and this is hard because where does that show up in a test score, right? How does that show up in the form of something we can point to as tangible? Oh, we have 2,000 teachers and a million gazillion kids, and that means that we're going to test lower. It's hard to, I guess, show that in a tangible form for a parent. All we can do is say that, you're a professional that's been in this business, this particular thing, for a lifetime, going on a quarter century. I've been in and around it for roughly about the same time. And I do see that. I do think that if we magnified this on a national level, that if we saw the fact that we just keep growing and growing and growing, I had this conversation with a dude a little earlier today. This isn't 509 BCE and the beginning of democracy, right, in Athens, where everybody there could go talk to the other guy. Our government's Byzantine as all hell. There are people that'll never know each other, never meet each other. And you lose a little bit, you lose a lot, in my opinion. This is for my conservative group out there and my liberal group out there that really need to get a handle on it. If you can't look somebody in the eye and know who they are, you will lose something there. And so let's tie that back to the beginning of this point. I think we've lost a lot of who we were as a community going back to that time when we first started to grow, because nobody had a plan. And I will say that nobody in leadership at the top, either board level or administratively, had a plan on, wow, how are we going to grow and handle all this and still remain who we are? So we've become a lot of different things. And I won't say that we're bad, but I will say that we're disjointed, disconnected, discombobulated. A lot of this. A lot of this.
I think it, the relationships have,
definitely relationships,
and not just, I'm not talking,
of course, student relationships, getting to know your class and stuff, but relationships among teachers, being able to trust each other, being able to, hey, what are you doing, and looking at yourself as a teacher and say, hey man, you're
collaborating.
Yeah, collaborating. You're doing some awesome stuff. What are you doing? So
how can I make that work in my class?
Right? Administrative teaching relations. I mean, there's been a lot of, it's us versus them. You know what? And that's garbage. It should not be that way. It should be.
You may have had that. And I will say this because, like I said, my wife was at Rio when you were there teaching. And, you guys had an identifiable, tangible, visible culture.
Yes.
An environment.
Yes.
You were a community within the larger community. You were a sub-community within the larger community.
Yes.
But we were still a community here, a community there, a community. And I won't even fault like you in particular because you were a principal and there were teachers there. That's not your job. The job is for our leadership to put all those pieces together so that it's one community. You know what I mean? That's the larger perspective of having this bigger growing school system. And how do we make or get all those pieces to fit together uniformly so that we're all moving in the same direction?
Yeah.
I don't, and I've said it again, as I'm going to take it a step further. I've said before on the show, don't fault students.
No.
I do not fault teachers. And I'm going to go a step further for all of my site admin homies out there. I do not fault site admin either, because you guys are dealing with the sub community within the larger community.
Yeah.
And it isn't your job to build that larger. I think that I'll go on record, and anybody doesn't like it, my apologies. You don't have to listen. But we did not do that adequately over about a 15, 20, maybe 25-year window where we grew rapidly, and we didn't envisage that out long-term on how we were going to keep all these disparate parts together moving in the same direction so that we ended up being like super incredible badass at the end of it all, academically, if not athletically, because I do believe I've gone on record saying athletically, I think we're going to do well all the time anyway, because we have some talented athletes and we have numbers. We have 4,300 students. We're the largest high school in the Valley. So I'm going to go on record as saying we should do well. But academically, it's a different critter. So, I mean, I want to wrap that up, but and I know you and I kind of see eye to eye on that. I do think we lost something.
Yeah.
You were there at the beginning when it was at the West Campus before they split. Yeah. You had something good at Rio Vista where you had a clearly identifiable, and I'll say it, identifiable, tangible, visible, comprehensible community within your group.
To this day, when we see our former students, it's always go Titans.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's and we lived it, and our kids were part of something. They really were, and it was amazing. Chris Williams, did an amazing job opening up that school. And I just remember my interview. They said, "How are you going to fill his shoes?" I said, "I'm not going to fill his shoes. I'm gonna walk in my own shoes." And I took it to the next level.
So I got the ball. Let me
have it.
Let me run.
And I think we have a monumental task to kind of get back to how can we get all the moving parts together. But I think really, we have to just strip it all down and say, okay, here you go. Every decision, what is best for kids? End of story. If you live by that and you do what's best for these kids and you're following in your heart, I'll just tell you right now, Richard, it's all going to fall in place. I know there's a lot of people that say, oh, it's hard, it's harder done than said, but it's a start. It's a start. It's a solution.
Exactly.
It's a part.
Exactly. It is, and that's kind of like
it's a part.
So I've said this a couple times on some of the prior shows to deal with this topic, is that if you're not waking up every morning, and this is applicable to anybody in the community, whether you're a teacher, a parent, student, whatever, if you're not waking up with the intent that you're filtering all of this was how does this affect this decision that I'm going to make today, whether it's a teacher or an admin or whatever, how does this affect the student individually and as a whole, the body? How does this affect their ability to learn in the classroom? If you're not making the decisions filtered through that, then you're not doing the right thing. I'll just say it. I really don't believe that you are, because you're making all these other arbitrary decisions, some based on what's best for you in front of you at the time, some based on survival, like you said earlier. And sometimes
I think a lot is based on
there's survival. There's survival involved,
based on survival.
but it does need to filter through that prism that says, okay, when this decision is made, what is the result of it, and how does that affect a student's ability to learn from a teacher in the classroom, which I've gone on record as saying also that there is no single greater relationship than a teacher and a student in the classroom at the point of attack learning. That is, to me, that's everything. I mean, here's why. We still deal with the genesis and the basis of a learning process in Western culture in general comes from, sitting down with, I've got Socrates to Plato to Aristotle, and they didn't have tech. They didn't have this. They didn't have that. They didn't have classrooms. They didn't, it was literally a guy sitting on a rock.
Exactly.
Underneath the tree, educating, Aristotle educating Alexander the Great, and then he conquered the known world at that time. When it's really broken down, and that's probably why, like some of my friends say I'm really, really conservative about it, whatever you want to call it, I don't care. But when it's all over and done, there is nothing more important than that relationship between the student and the teacher.
Oh, I agree.
And as administrators, leaders, parents, all of the above, if it's not filtering through that and the prism comes out that that's what's happening, meaning the teacher and the student have a great relationship in learning, and it's coming, we're removing, in my world, the military world, you remove all of the crap and the headache and the bull and the garbage so that your soldier can do their great job. That's your job.
Well, let me break it down for you on this. Okay, so where I'm at right now at Central Alternative, okay, it's independent study, and you know what? The relationships that I see our teachers there, my colleagues, that are the relationships that they are making with these students, just the growth of these students. I mean, just the short time I've been there, what, 6, 7 years? I can't even remember how long I've been there. But just, I've had students that would come in and they were bullied. They fell through the cracks. They just, anxiety, whatever. They would come in and they would prosper, and they would learn, and they would grow.
And I look at over the years, I mean, just student after student after student, that, came in and just, look what they did, and just amazing. And that has a lot to do with the relationships that the teachers fosters with those kids. Now, I know
let me hold you there for a second.
Yeah.
You're talking about these things, and what's going through my head, and I hope it's going through my listeners' head, what are your numbers of students?
We probably cycle.
How many do you see?
We probably have 240.
No, but I mean day to day in your classroom.
You know what? It varies. It really varies. I mean, I could see 15 kids. I can see 30 kids.
Oh, really?
We've got kids coming and going.
Okay.
Oh yeah. So it's a little different. It's a one-on-one program.
But it's manageable enough where you're having relationships with kids.
And you can sit there and you can talk to the student. And I had a student come in the other day, and it's like, hey man, what's going on? What's wrong? I could just tell, because I have a connection with that student. I can tell whether they're on or they're off that day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then we start kind of talking. And again, I become a father. I become a father figure, not actual father, but father figure. And you build those relationships, and then those students start becoming confident. You would not believe,
because that's building a culture.
Yeah,
that's building the culture.
Yeah. And we try to do that at Rio Vista, where and again with pure numbers, I thought we had a lot of success with it.
Right.
But again, it's because of the volume. When you break it down, and you're able as a teacher to connect one-on-one. Look at your connection with Dennis Fitzpatrick. Look at where you are because of Dennis.
Our classes was no more than 20 kids.
Exactly.
And he fostered my love of the subject.
Exactly. And he saw that, and he rolled it. I do that every day. My teachers that I work with, my colleagues over there, we do that every day there. We sit there and we take something, and it's like I've got students that they come in and they have no credits in mathematics. Then they go, I can't do math. Yeah, you can. Let's go. You know what? And we're
anybody can do math.
Anybody can do math. And you know what? They're seeing success. They're like, hey, I can do this. I can do this. And I have seen I've got kids that come in that can't even add. They can't even subtract. They don't know anything about fractions. Right. And they see success and they grow. You know what? And so, yeah, I think our model, I had a couple classes when I was at high school in Penn Study. We'd walk in, the teacher said, okay, here you go. For this year, we are going to be doing units 1 through 12 or whatever. You get up with a partner, and this is how you are going to teach yourself. You're going to teach your partner. You're going to learn together. And you know what? When you feel like you've mastered that subject, you're going to come to me, and I'm going to give you an oral test, and I'm going to give you a written test. Right. And it was like, wow, and yeah, the classroom was busy. People were talking, but people were learning, And I think this part of when we have so many students in a class, it's that you don't hear all the voices.
Yep.
I know for a fact, and teachers can say this. There's probably been kids in their class that it's probably been weeks and they have not heard their voice.
Because I think at that point, I mean, for the listener, my audience, it ends up becoming more as the numbers increase in classes. It becomes more about management than instruction.
Yeah,
and managing the class.
I get the whole thing from the upper management thing. Well, you know what? We're allotted so much money for the state and for the Fed and this and that. But you know what though? It's taking those resources and and again, I don't want to disrespect anybody, but instead of spending on frivolous stuff,
I will.
Okay.
Did anybody say tablets?
Okay. Well,
how much we spent and I could be wrong on this, and they can correct me, but I know that we did at least 8, 9, maybe more millions.
I think there's more
on tablets that we still do not have anything to show for.
I agree.
And I mean, so my thing was this, and this I told a mom, and again, walking precincts, talking at the door to people. I told them, could you imagine how many teachers we can hire? Or how many more classrooms we can build to shrink the amount of students in the classroom, because and let's just do that and drop it on the table. Everybody knows it's even the greatest naysayer will not disagree, because they'd be dumb and on the surface it just looked bad. You shrink the amount of students in the classroom, and the teacher's ability to teach rises astronomically because of the decrease in the volume of student and the management aspect of it, as opposed to the instruction aspect of it. So we don't do that. So this is crazy, but we've already gone 50 minutes, homeboy. 50 minutes. So I've got 10 minutes to get. I didn't get to all of it, and I apologize to my audience, but we will have a wrap-up show next week.
You can have me back.
You might have to. I might have to. You never know. I mean, it's like we got the time because I mean, it's so much that there's so much that you have to cover that there's not enough time to do it all. But I do have to kind of get to the logical endpoint of my fact-finding, information gathering mission over the last month. So we put, like you said earlier, because I agree 100%. You know, I was a soldier. It wasn't about just identifying the problem, because we were really, really good at identifying the problem. But it's also immediately finding solution and making a decision.
You know what?
Immediately and not waiting 20 years to do it.
Well, yeah.
So here's where I'll go with that 20-year solution. Okay, 1996 was when you had to move over because they built the East Campus.
Yes.
All right, so it's 21 years.
Yes.
21 years that, and I'll say it, and I don't care who hears it, because I was told, I was a young dude out of the Army, and I was interested and I wanted to know. I was on, you know, I got back with stars in my eyes, and I saw Central for what it could be, not what it wasn't. And they're like, wow, that's deep. I was like, well, it's only deep if it happens, right? It's deep if it happens, but I see it for what it could be, not for what it isn't. And at that point, we were told, not just me, but a bunch of people in our community, probably teachers too. No, I take that back. I know one retired teacher told me she was told this, that was only a temporary solution, and that we would eventually be two fully fledged, meaning Central, East, West.
Oh, yeah.
And I hope they don't just carbon copy the damn Clovis model and name it directionally. I mean, Central, I'm going to say this out loud. Can we not be more creative? Come on, man. I'm tired of carbon copying everything they do. Let's get a little more creative than, oh, we're multi-directional campuses. Anyway, so it was supposed to be two separate, fully fledged, fully teched out, fully modernized campuses that programmatically, and because that's the biggest naysay that I hear now, oh, if we split them, it's going to be programmatically, it's going to be hard. You know what? Our people are ready. Let's deal with the difficulty. Rip the bandage off and let's just deal with it already. Okay, maybe one campus, you go there because they have a science core. Maybe you go to another because it's arts and letters. Maybe you go to another for law or math, whatever.
You take both campuses and then the new high school, the third, and you say, okay, you know what? We're going to outfit them with the core. Okay?
Okay, you just hit the nail on the head, because that's what it has to start with.
So that
the core has to be the same.
So if I want to take AP Calculus and I'm at West Campus, it's at West Campus. Or if I'm at East Campus, it is at East Campus.
Yes.
Or if it's at the new one. Okay?
Yes.
So you do that. But then you look at the cultures of the schools, you know, and you look at, like I remember at West Campus, you know, they had all kinds of tech, you know, automotive tech shops, you know, small engine shops and all that stuff, you know. East Campus, you know, they've got, when I was there, you know, we were.
It is kind of a little like that already.
Yeah, but, you know, you have a technology and all that stuff. And I haven't been at East Campus in a long time. But, you know, then you start building in your specialized programs.
Right. Okay, and so let me, because we're going to run out of time. Okay. So that we're, listener, again, clear, because we've covered a lot and a lot of good material from an expert in an area that he's been in for 20-some years. The core has to be equitable and the same of quality across the board at, and I'm going to say this, 3 campuses, 3 high schools, not this thing where they're promising, and I'll say it, and this is the one I'll get the most heat for, they're promising the shiny new toy, the brand new campus. And by the way, for those of you that don't know, it's 2021 that it's supposed to open, but it will not be open completely. There will be no pool. There will be no performing arts. There will be no this. There will be a lot of things that are not open. It'll be a base, literally a shell, and and I'm gonna go on record as saying this one too, because I've talked to people in my community. It's 5 minutes away from the other campus, and it's going to be small. So quote me, Central community, too close, too small. That's a fact. Okay, and you know, when I think about, Tim, and I don't know about you, but when I think about that running through my head, too close, too small, I think of the East Campus when they first built it in '96, because then we dealt with overcrowding issues like within the first 5 years.
Oh no, before that we were I think it was like the second year we were doing double lunch.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go have one after this this conversation, because that's what I remember. They built that just to say they got it done. Oh, look, we got a brand new campus. But we were dealing like 2 or 3 years within immediately we were too small. So I'm telling you right now, unless I'm way off base, and I know I'm not, because I've already been through this, right? We've been through this. This new one is going to be too small and too close to the other. All right, it's not going to have, even when it opens, it's not going to have everything that's supposed to be. And more importantly, and I know I did this on one of the previous shows, we're going from three campuses, one high school. So you know what it is. It's East, West, and the West Arts Center, the old Pershing.
Oh,
Three campuses, because we shuttle and bus back. We didn't even get into shuttling, man, because then that's what we really did. Okay, so because the kids and the parents just do not dig on it because there's no answer to it, but I do have an answer.
I thought shuttling was a temporary fix.
That was also the temporary fix. It was a temporary solution because they were going to build two fully fledged, fully modernized, teched out, incredible campuses, two high schools. Okay, so we have three campuses, one high school.
Right.
Even if we build the 2021 targeted date and it actually opens, and by the way, it's not going to be fully open because it's not going to have everything. So again, it not only is going to be too small, but now we're going from three campuses, one high school, to 4 campuses, 2 high schools. How the hell does that solve shuttling? How the hell does that make us better? How the hell does that solve overcrowding? It's not. So the only solution that we have available in front of us, and obviously there's money involved and it's not going to be easy.
Right.
But here's the scary thing. Nobody's really gone into our community and asked us to dig deep and find a way. They don't come and ask us in the community. They just do it, right? Because they don't know us. They didn't grow up here. They don't live here. Their kids don't go here. They'll never stay here. They don't live here. It's that simple. Our tax dollars, right? You split the 2 campuses we have now, begin that process, and build a third, because we need 3 high schools yesterday, not tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm down to 3 minutes. So that's, I mean, you were there at the beginning of that. You understand that. The building a new half high school is not going to solve the shuttling, the moving kids around, the instructional time, which we didn't even get into, which you and I both know. Again, you know that's my baby right there. The instruction time that we lack. We lack instruction time because kids are leaving class to get to another class. And I think I calculated out, the kids never gave me their homework back, by the way. Some of them are going to like that. They had homework to calculate how many minutes they actually miss out of a calendar or a school year. And I tallied up to be in the range of 6.5 to 7 hours, that if you have one class, like my daughter had bio, right? She had to get out of the bio class 10 minutes early to get to the next campus. Okay, so she lost 10 minutes of instruction time with a really good teacher. She's having to do that, and we've made adjustments to try to compensate for it. Currently, she's got an AP US history class, right? And she's leaving 10 minutes early. I don't want her leaving 10 minutes early when the instructor's going right up to the last minute. Exactly. She's missing. Okay, so 6.5 to 7 hours out of a school year. And my daughter has to compete on an AP exam with a kid from Boston, a kid from Houston, a kid from everywhere in the country. How the hell are we putting them in positions to be successful? Or I'm just saying a level playing field. They're not getting it because of instruction time. Instruction time will not be solved until we have the campuses we need, 3 of them, and they're large enough with sizes that are manageable for our teachers. So I'm down to 1 minute and 40. So I'm going to go out on the limb, Central. Okay, so this is what I'm going to have to do. I think we're going to have to come back on 1 more hour. And I'm going to be able to do that before I go to my live format during the weekday on AM 1680, The Answer. I got to take care of a few things before we cut out. Sure. I need to thank my sponsors, advertisers. I actually have people paying me to say this stuff. That's scary because they want to hear it. That's scary. Yeah, exactly. I know, crazy. But you know why? They want to hear it. Yeah. He would pay me to pay to play, right? Yeah. So I need to thank Phil Gu Relay. He's a mortgage lender in the area. If you guys get to him, do a loan with him, he'll cover me. Residential Bancorp, Ruben Duran, same. And then Travis Takiuchi, my crime partner, alumni, Central 89, who is my partner in Heroes Home Advantage program. Oh, quickly. All right, for any that want, any of my listeners, I've got 2 female Heroes Home Advantage shirts. Check that out. That's cool as hell. Look at the fight. All right, Heroes Home Advantage shirts. Message me. I'll get you a free shirt for the first 2 or 3 that hit me. I'm down to 30 seconds. So Heroes Home Advantage, Travis Takiuchi, do loans with him. He's alumni. He's doing a lot of business in our community. We're getting veterans to move into Central Unified because veterans are unafraid to ask some really ugly questions. I'm about out. Thank you, brother. And maybe I will have you back. We'll talk about that. But check this out. For those of you on the air, we're going to go overtime in a little bit. Tim, you stay on for a second. I want to thank my listener on AM 1680. I will be going to weekday pretty soon. Have a good one. SuperMex is out. All right, so that's radio, so I'm still on. This is what I call overtime. We're on overtime. So this is the opportunity to get, I think, so literally what I'm going to do is I'm going to save the instructional minutes and the instruction time thing, because there is an answer for that. There is an answer. It may not be the answer that some people want, but it is the answer that we were promised 20 years ago, 21 years ago. This is what was supposed to have happened, and it would have dealt with. So I had a guy ask me, goes, well, if we're going to do that, they're going to say that it's about money, right? And I said, yeah. I said, but you know what? Our kids get the same daily allowance that the kid at Bullard's getting as they get their facelift. I went by Edison for a water polo match. Yeah. I went by Gaston Middle School. Yeah. That thing looks better than both of our damn campuses combined. Yeah. I was like, whoa. So Clovis Unified, obviously known for building. Yeah. And yes, their tax base is different than ours. Sure. Okay, but I'm tired of something you said earlier. You brought up the point that from the administrative standpoint, which you've been in, okay, it's about this. We have dollars. We can only do this much. The state minimum is this. I don't know about you, Tim, but I've told people openly, I'm tired of hearing about the minimum. We have not, and this goes to your point earlier, we have not erred on the side of the child in making our decisions. If I'm in this community and I'm not going in, I'm going to die here, all right? If you told me you had to tax me more to give my kids better, you know what I'm going to say, brother? Tax me up, baby. Yeah. Tax me up. Yeah. I'm not saying you're going to tax. I don't even know. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't tax me as much as Clovis Unified does. But damn it, can it be better than what we've got around here? I mean, there was Hanford West. They've got a brand new high school. That was a while ago. Yeah. We're the only school in the region that is still dealing with this multi-campus situation. Yeah. And I mean region between here and Bakersfield, for sure. I know that. Yeah. I know gives the old central section, right? I know the section. Yeah. I don't know how far up to SAC we go that this might be the case, but I know we're the only ones that for 21 years we've been dealing with this, and then we've been, putting it off. Yeah. So here's your chance. I mean, just like you said, unfiltered. Like, where are you at? Like with what you've heard. That's better yet. What have you heard about the new high school and the problems that are going to be solved because of it?
Not much, to tell you the truth. Because I think initially, when I was still at Rio, really got heard a lot. Hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. It's going to, we're going to go out over by the stadium, and I think kind of after that, once I left, I know from my standpoint.
So you were hearing it even when you were at Rio?
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
Oh, well, that's 7, 8, whatever. What was
5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I was at Rio from 2005 to 2011. So, but
we've got a generation of kids that are grown up now. They've got kids coming through the system, and you know what they tell me? I was promised that high school.
Yeah, yeah. When I say that, we need to strip it down and do what's best for kids. I'm not saying, I don't want anybody to misconstrue what I said. I'm not saying that the people that we have leading our district, working in our district, our community, I'm not saying that's not where their heart is. It's just they got to strip away all that junk. They got to strip away all the politics.
I don't think anybody, I'll go on record with you on saying it. I don't think anybody's doubting that people have their heart in the right place.
I agree.
It's when you make a hard decision.
You
have to be able to make a hard decision.
But here's the deal, though, okay? That's what you signed up as a leader. If you were a leader, wherever you're a leader at, you know what? You better go strong or don't go at all. That's what you get paid for, to make the tough decisions. I see it all the time. You know what? We kind of tiptoe through, well, you know what? I've got to do some discipline here, but I don't want it. You know what? You have to make the right decisions, the hard decisions. Yeah. And sometimes it's right, and sometimes it's wrong. And if it's wrong, you know what? You fess up, then you say, hey, you know what? I own it. There was time. I didn't make all the right decisions, So
I'm gonna have to cut. We'll stop on that one.
Yeah.
And to wrap up, this is I got to get going out of the studio here.
Yeah.
It's like what it is exactly what you said. This is for my viewer audience. Okay. In the military, for me, it was real simple. You had hard decisions to make, life and death decisions in some cases, depending on where you were or who you are.
Yeah.
But you knew that at the end of the day, it was real simple. They looked you in the eye and they told you, if you can't make a hard decision, don't take the damn job.
Thank you.
That's simple. That's for you, Central. Thank you for watching. Please share out. We'll do this again next week, and that'll probably wrap up our series on our school system, because we're going to have answers for you that you guys go talk about, that you guys ask questions about. Don't take my word for it. You find out for yourself, and I'm confident that you'll reach the same conclusions. Have a great day. Bye.